Hey again everyone, and welcome back to the channel for yet another episode in our ongoing new figure showcase series. And if you're not familiar with the channel or are new here, this is just a chance for me to do a quick unboxing and review of a newer addition to the collection. More often than not, it will be a more recent release, but there are exceptions now and then. So for today's episode, we'll be taking a look at the Hot Toys 6-scale version of John Wick based on the character's appearance in the fourth movie in the series. Now, we've gotten a ton of John Wick figures from third-party companies, including a great release from Hot Toys from John Wick Chapter 2. But I did like the way this looked in the promo images, and I felt like I needed to get this particular version. Now, is this the last time we'll see John Wick? We do know he'll be turning up in the spin-off Ballerina movie, but as far as his story, it's to be determined if this is the ending. And if it is, it was a pretty solid one. Although I will admit, for me, this was easily the weakest movie of the franchise. Still very enjoyable, but just not as good as the previous installments. Having said that, it's just great to see the conclusion to the story. And great to see Hot Toys showing the franchise some love with not just John Wick, but also Kane that we previously looked at. So let's take a look at everything we're getting here from Hot Toys. And as one would expect from a character like John Wick, he is loaded with tons of weaponry and also an extensive number of hands. And as this is the exclusive, you are getting the additional rifle here, which I think is a pretty great add to have for the set, especially if you do want to double up with the automatic shotgun rifle. But beyond that, he also includes a pistol, just one this time. He does have also that pistol from the final duel. He has a katana, nunchucks, a bow and arrow, as well as some of the gold coins in stacks and individual coins. And then what you do see here is that alternate hairpiece to create the different look, changing between a more dynamic and calm pose. And I think, of course, the standard hexagonal display base with a nice design on top. So I would say a pretty loaded release, although maybe not as much as the first version of John Wick we got from Hot Toys. So let's jump into those accessories to take a closer look, and we'll start with his hands. And as mentioned in the overall section, the selection here is extensive. You have some pre-posed hands just to create a dynamic look, and then obviously you get your hands to hold the various weapons. But the key here, which I'm glad to see Hot Toys got right, is the missing finger on his left hand. All of the additional left hands are clearly missing that finger. Now, as far as the paint apps, pretty solid and with sufficient detailing, including some veins on the back of the hands. Nothing that's going to stand out as negative. They're just done well, which is what you'd expect from these. So now let's get into the weaponry, and we'll start with the automatic shotgun rifle, which makes a great appearance towards the end of the film, with the big flames as each shell is expelled. Now, the biggest standout that shows you this is different is the sheer width of the magazine to accommodate the larger shells, and also the larger barrel. Now, as far as the weapon, great detail work with the imprinted text along both sides of the rifle, and even text on the rail-mounted sights. There is a large charging handle on both sides of the weapon, but it is not functional. And then the stock can extend, although it does seem like it extends out almost a little too much. So I think I'll be keeping it in the base configuration, but beautifully detailed. Next up, you get the exclusive, which is a more standard AR rifle that includes the text on either side again, and the now expected Terran Tactical logos. Again, beautifully detailed with the integrated suppressor and then the mounted scope at the top. The details on the stock are a little more involved, with more stuff happening, and can also be extended out. There is a working action, and you can flip down the dust cover on the ejection port to reveal the inner workings of the rifle. The top scope is molded and has molded covers for each end of the scope, but they're not functional, so you can't lift to expose the lenses. Now, on the side of the gun, there is a side-mounted sight that does have a nice green clear plastic optic, but overall very nicely detailed, as would be expected. Next weapon is a sidearm, which continues that trend we've seen with all the movies with the gold accents on the port and the hammer. Gold is a very nice accent that just blends in well with the black of the gun, and it does include what looks like a compensator at the tip and a flared out well at the base for the mag well. It looks very interesting and aggressive. Same thing too with the imprinted text. Just a great looking weapon overall. And what I'm starting to realize, it's going to be difficult to pick one specific look for John Wick. Next up is a ceremonial pistol that was also included with the Kane figure from the movie's final duel. So if you wanted to pair John up with Kane, you could try to recreate something using these. The pistol itself was nicely done with the faux wood accents and decent paint apps showing the wood grain, as well as the silver on the main chamber and trigger and guard. The front of the pistol pistol does pivot open on a joint and reveals a single round inside the barrel, so nicely detailed, and some opportunities for decent poses here. Now we get into the bladed weapons, and first up is the bow with 2 arrows. Now this makes a quick appearance at the start of the movie at the Continental, so overall very sleek, nothing too crazy. Looks very similar actually to the Cape Bishop bow, maybe with some slight modifications, but it has some great details to it, with some bolts connecting the ends of the bow directly to the primary handle. The string does have a little springiness to it and can hold the arrow in place, and then the arrows themselves are just a dark, almost carbon looking rod with the feathers at the rear, nicely detailed. One other thing that's maybe difficult to see, the bow itself isn't just a plain black. There's basically a wood paint application on the ends of the bow, just very dark but looks great. Next up you get the katana, which again he uses in the first part of the movie. It's plastic, so that is a little unfortunate, especially when other companies are doing metal blades, but look, for me, not a deal breaker at all. The blade itself has a nice pattern to the edge where it almost looks like tempered steel, and it ends in a highly detailed handle. All that's been molded on top of a gold metal underlayment that almost looks roughly chiseled, and then it has the molded ties around the handle, ending in this phenomenally detailed handguard with nice ridges. And final weapon that we haven't gotten with John Wick before, the nunchucks. This is a great feature. So the first thing, chain holding the 2 bars is real metal. I feel like at this point that should be fairly standard on these figures, and then the detailing itself on each of the handles is great. Now instead of just being round wood sticks, they're actually faceted, so there is a nice shape to them, not very perceptible but very cool. And then the detail for the faux wood is awesome with the nice metal fixtures at the chain connector. And final set of accessories are pretty much reused from the original Hot Toys John Wick figure, and those are the gold coins. You get 3 pre-molded stacks and 3 individual coins. Now it's always great to have some extra accessories, but realistically, at least for me, I'm going to want to showcase John with his weapons. But these could be great to have littered around the figure's feet, and for small pieces, they aren't badly detailed, with the gold appearance overall and decent images on the faces of the coins themselves. Okay, so that was a lot of accessories to review, but now let's get into the figure, and we'll start with the sculpt. So first off, we'll start with the dynamic hairpiece. Mechanism for replacing and swapping these out is pretty simple, with everything being magnetic, and with the sculpted hair, the seams are well hidden. Now, details on the sculpted hair are top-notch, with layering and the thin strands of hair all splayed out. It really is a great overall look and a great job by Hot Toys. As far as the actual likeness to Keanu Reeves, I think it's right there. The detail is just incredible, from the work on the facial hair to the facial features, including the slightly parted mouth, showcasing the teeth underneath. The eyes, also impressive and very realistic, so I do think this is a top-notch sculpt, and the paint applications look great too. Now the second look has a more relaxed hair. I'll be honest, when I saw the prototype, I didn't think this would be as good as it is in hand, but it 100% captures the longer hair look that John has in this movie, and it does lend itself to the character and the figure, and allows you to really create a great series of looks. The only difference here again is that front hairpiece, so just a customizable approach to the figure. Now as far as the rest of the figure, this is where he comes across maybe a little simple. He's just a guy in a suit, essentially. Albeit it's a 3-piece suit, and while it could have easily just been a forgettable figure, there's a great pattern and texture to the fabric of the jacket, the vest, the pants, and the tie, which all match and give the figure a slightly better feel and look. The shirt is just a plain white one with a very high collar, and the shoes are molded in place but still look like solid dress shoes. And the figure itself, again, just feels robust, like it's highly posable but doesn't need the stand to remain in place. Now, I will say I did actually play with the eyes a little bit. I tend to stay away from that just because I'm always concerned that I'm not going to be able to get it to look good. And while it's a little finicky and sometimes you push the eye a little too much, I did start to see the benefit of playing around with these a little bit, because it does give you just a little extra, and it does help the figure come to life a little bit more. So overall thoughts, it's an amazing figure. Yes, it's just a guy in a suit, but that's John Wick for you. And the likeness to me is on point. The accessories are incredible, and you can really pose him in so many different ways where you can get a lot out of this guy. I actually really like both the dynamic and relaxed hairstyles, and think it really depends on your final display goals with him as to which one you're going to use. For me, having the original figure from John Wick 2, the dynamic hairstyle is going to be the way to go, just to differentiate a little bit. One thing I did notice, though, that may seem like a small complaint, but I still wanted to flag it, the suit does tend to get a bit wrinkled when you fold the arms up in poses. I guess it's in line with real clothes if you have them set in a specific pose for way too long, but it's just something that I noted. But as a positive, the lower edge of the jacket is actually wired, so you can create some subtle yet great, decent dynamic poses with minimal amount of effort. The only slightly restrictive element I found were the the jacket shoulders. I found that I wasn't able to completely get the arms posed the way I wanted. In particular, I always like to, with double jointed elbows, which the figure does have, I like to get a really good pose with the rifle where he's kind of, with the figure's kind of looking down the sight, and I wasn't really able to get that. I just felt that for some reason the shoulder wouldn't pivot the way I wanted to. Might just require a little bit more work to get it to look right and to really pose the way I wanted to. But it, again, just something to flag. Then as far as all the accessories, again, he looks great with everything, right? From the nunchucks to the bow. Surprisingly, the bow itself, which wasn't necessarily the biggest standout in terms of his weaponry, it actually does look pretty decent. So I have to kind of consider how I'm going to showcase this guy, because there's just endless possibilities, which is what you want from a John Wick figure. And I think that's a credit to Hot Toys and what they're really achieving here, because this, again, could have been mistaken as a very simple figure, but what Hot Toys delivered here is pretty outstanding overall, and it just brings John Wick to life. I cannot tell you how impressed I am with this guy, but those are just my thoughts. So curious to hear what you're thinking on this one, and as always, I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll touch base on the next video.